Good afternoon, Mets fans, and welcome to the New York Mets Lounge. I am your diehard New York Mets fan, Uncle Freezie, diehard fan of the Knicks, the Mets, the Devils, Bears. Y'all know what it is. Thank you for joining me on the pilot episode of the New York Mets Lounge. I'm just going to discuss a few topics here today. Going to discuss David Stearns, maybe a little bit of Steve Cohen, maybe a little bit of Pete Alonso. Do some deep dive into some polarizing Mets topics and read your comments. Seeing that this is a live stream, so I'll read some of the comments. Make sure you comment in the comment section. I already have a poll out there already. Is David Stearns doing a good job? That is the poll. So I have two answers for you to select: yes or no. I have a sneaking suspicion on which answer you are going to select. But let's get started with topic number one, right? Topic number one. Did the Mets make a mistake not re-signing Pete Alonso? This is a difficult topic. This is touchy. Because if you're a diehard Mets fan and you believe in homegrown talent and you believe in helping successful homegrown talent remain successful, then you didn't like the fact that Pete Alonso left, right? Pete Alonso is a multiple-time All-Star. Pete Alonso is a Mets draft pick, homegrown talent. Worked his way up to the grinded his way into the starting lineup. Hit a bunch of home runs for us. Was on some bad teams, was on some very good teams, had some great Mets moments, had some great Mets playoff moments. So to see Pete Alonso walk out of the door, you're thinking, or I am thinking as a long-term Mets fan. I've been a Mets fan since the 70s, right? I've been a Mets fan hardcore. So I've been a hardcore Mets fan since about 1975-ish, 1976-ish. So I started out as a little boy being a Mets fan. And it's not often that a Mets position player comes through the ranks and provides a long-term impact like Pete Alonso. You saw it with guys like David Wright, Darryl Strawberry, Pete Alonso. Like guys that come up through the Mets farm system, become starters, become successful at this level, and for a stretch, become the face of the franchise. So is it sad for me to see Pete Alonso go? Yes. Was it sad for me to see how this Pete Alonso thing played itself out? Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. Now, should I have faith in David Stearns and Steve Cohen? I should, but I don't. Right? I should. I don't. Right? I should. I don't. And so you can judge me on that either way. I'm a fan. I never thought Pete Alonso was the reason why this Mets team didn't win. And shout out to a guy. I want to shout out a guy. I heard him say something. I think Andrew Claudio, who I think he's from Knicks Film School. I'm not for sure if he's doing Mets content on his own, but I saw him go on a rant. Not really a rant, but I guess a rant is what it should be called, because it was right on point when he mentioned it. Right, it was right on point when he mentioned it. Right, guys like Pete Alonso's bat was never the issue with why the Mets didn't win. Right, it had been steady, reliable starting pitching for one, and then steady, reliable bullpen help. Right, pitching overall. Now, there were times that the Mets had dominant pitching, and there were times that the Mets made significant tried to correct the issue by bringing in Max Scherzer, Chris Bassett, Justin Verlander, any host of guys trying to fix the issue short term until the young guys in the farm system can come up and replace those guys. It didn't work. But what does that have to do with Pete Alonso? Right? Pete Alonso is not a starting pitcher. Pete Alonso is not a relief pitcher. He's not a closer. Pete Alonso is a slugger that plays first base. Right? Pete Alonso is a slugger that plays first base. Pete, you can depend on Pete to get you somewhere between 35 home runs on the low end and 50 plus home runs in a great season, right? But you can count on that from Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso rarely gets hurt. Pete Alonso played a lot for the Mets. Even when other guys were limping to the injured list. I forget what they call it now, but the DL, whatever they call it, injured list DL, whatever they call it nowadays. I'm old school. So I'm an old school baseball fan. And so if I call things out of name, I know what it is. I probably just call it the older name. So, but did the Mets make a mistake not resigning Pete Alonso? I'm going to say this in a couple ways. There are a couple of reasons why I feel as if they made a mistake. Reason number one is the organization, though it has its face of the franchise in Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor. Pete Alonso, for a lot of us, what is still the face of the, or was still the face of the franchise, is because he had been here longer and we attached ourselves to Pete Alonso, right? A lot of us remember when Pete Alonso was the guy in AAA pushing Dominic Smith out of the way, moving Dom Smith aside, a guy that a lot of us liked. Did Dominic Smith turn out to be a star MLB player? No. Is he a quality MLB player? Yes, he's still in the majors right now. Right? So a lot of us were told Pete Alonso would be the long-term replacement for Dom Smith, who at the time was very young. You remember that core? Pete Alonso, Dominic Smith, Ahmed Rosario, the kid we traded for Lindor, the second baseman. I forget his name. Oh, geez, I forget his name. I forget his name, but basically we traded like 3 shortstops or 2 shortstops and a second baseman and some stuff for Francisco Lindor. Do I regret the Lindor trade? No. This is me talking about Pete Alonso, though. Right? So, one, there is a separation anxiety from Mets fans who one day maybe wanted to see number 20 retired at some point. He had a long way to go in order to get a number retired and things of that sort, but you can't get there if you sign with if you sign with another team. Part number 2, home runs are very hard to come by. And you had a great home run hitter in a park that historically has not been home run hitter friendly. Now, is it better since they moved the walls in some? Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's better. It's better. Right? But still, it's hard to get home runs in City Field is not Citizens Bank Park. City Field is not Coors Field. City Field is not Yankee Stadium. Right? So to get a guy, whether he's right-handed or not, to get you 35, 40, 45, 50 home runs in City Field, despite the fact that he's a subpar defender at first, he's not a glove man. Does he scoop well? Does he throw well? No. Does he run well? No. The one thing about Pete Alonso, though, is that we know Pete Alonso loved being a Met, and Pete Alonso played hard. Pete Alonso was a Met. Replacing those 50 home runs, because here's the thing. Why are we going to pay? Because this is the thing. The money thing is not an issue, because I know they're going to move the money around and it's going to be weird. Jay Chosen in the building. Salute. Salute. The thing is, you can't fool me with the money in years, because you're going to pay that money and you're going to pay those years to players, right? Every payroll, every annual payroll is not going to be perfect. So to suggest that Pete Alonso for 5 years, 150, or 5 or 6 years, 180 is not doable is BS. Because the Mets are going to pay that money, and they're going to pay it to someone. They just don't want to pay it to Pete. I believe it may have something to do more with things outside of baseball than it does with things on the field, right? I think in their mind, Pete Alonso had to go. And they made up their mind in 2024 he had to go, right? But they got to this point and they knew they were not even going to offer Pete. They knew they weren't going to offer Pete. They didn't want to offer Pete last year, right? But in order to not lose the PR war with David Stearns, they had to re-sign Pete. So I see the Mets signed, and this is the reason why I'm leaning towards this is a mistake not signing Pete. So the Mets are going to sign or have a platoon at first base that will probably make more money annually than what Pete Alonso would make at first base annually. I'm going to assume that Pete is going to make about $30 million based off of the rumors I heard from the contract that he got from the Orioles, right? So the Mets signed the guy for 2 years, $40 million. So the guy that's going to be over there that's not going to be as productive of a home run hitter as Pete is going to make $20 million. And he's going to platoon with a guy that will probably make more than $10 million. So while it seems like on the surface that they're getting a cheaper option at first, are they really getting a cheaper option in a year-to-year situation? In my mind, if Pete is not the guy, if Pete is not the guy at first, are you moving Vientos to first? right? Because if you're not moving, if the plan was never to have Vientos play first, right, then I can't see why this is even a thing. Resign Pete. Pete was not old. Pete was in his prime. And if the Mets are considering what the contract is going to look like in post-prime years, they're bugging. There were plenty of ways for you to pay Pete Alonso and have him stay in a Mets uniform and have him be productive, right? If his defense sagged off so much, Pete could have been the full-time DH, like it or not. Pete. So if we're just considering, did the Mets make a mistake not re-signing Pete Alonso? Yes, you broke the heart of Mets fans. Yes, you're going to spend the same money or more at first base anyway, and maybe get less home run production. Right? And the defense thing, are you really getting better defensively at first? Was first base the defensive issue? Or was second base your issue defensively? Was right field your issue defensively? Was center field your issue defensively? Was left field your issue defensively? To just point out first base and say we're getting better defensively and then not really. The writing is on the wall with the Pete Alonso signing. Pete Alonso and the new regime was not a fit for each other. And that's probably what should have been said. They're not a fit for each other. If that was said up front, then you know what? It would have been a bitter pill to swallow, but I think I probably could have convinced myself into, or I could have motivated myself into thinking that was the case. Are the Mets moving on from a failed core or rejuvenating the clubhouse? Let me see, did I misspell that? I sure did. That's okay. We'll fix it. Are the Mets moving on from a failed core or rejuvenating the clubhouse? This one is tricky. This one is tricky because the Mets have a few different player groupings at once. You have the Pete Alonso, Starling Marte, Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, Starling Marte, group of guys that were put together, but they really didn't produce like we thought they would. And they made a lot of money, but they didn't produce anything. In a year where, or in a stitch of time where the Atlanta Braves are down, right? In a stitch of time where the perennial favorite Atlanta Braves are down, the Mets are down, right? The Phillies are good. They're not great. The Phillies are good. They're not great. But the Atlanta Braves are down, right? And so it's one of those things where, why aren't the Mets taking advantage of this situation? I think they're trying their best. I don't think, though, that the front office understands the levity of the situation. I just think they don't. The Mets should have been striking while the iron is hot for position players. Like the Cedric Mullins trade last year was a dud. Why in the world? How does David Stearns? Why would you trade for Cedric Mullins? That's your answer. Cedric Mullins is the answer for center field when you're in a playoff push. Cedric Mullins, Jose Siri, Tyrone Taylor. What are we doing? You have all these prospects. Listen, you have Vientos and Beatty and Acuna. They're not even prospects anymore. And the way that it looks is that they may not play every day. Why not package these? And I love Beatty and I love Vientos and I love Mauricio and I love Acuna. I'm not a big trade guy, right? Right. For those of y'all that know me from Lawrence Tears, you know I'm not a big trade person. I like developing talent. And if that talent can't develop where you are, then you move them to upgrade a position, right? Identify where your position of need is. Try to develop talent there. And if you can't develop the talent there, then go get talent. Right? But in this situation where David Stearns seems to be looking to upgrade defensively, and I think that's BS, right? I think that's the PR statement that said, because the Mets needed a new culture, so to speak. I think the Mets need a new culture, and by moving a lot of guys, you indeed send a message to the guys that are still in the clubhouse, but you also move some other guys out, right? At the same time, though, if you're looking to upgrade, why not go get a player, package your guys? And listen, I don't want to trade Alvarez. I don't want to trade Beatty. I don't want to trade Vientos. I don't want to trade Mauricio. I don't want to trade Acuna. But all of these guys are not going to be able to play. Right? You're going to stunt their growth. You can go get a guy to play center field for right now until Carson Bench is ready. Right? You can go get a guy to play left field until this young group of guys are ready. Right? But are the Mets doing that because of, or do they view this core as a failed core? I don't think it's that. I think it's all about culture. I don't think it has anything to do with wins and losses. Right? Because all the guys that were traded or moved or not re-signed are quality Major League Baseball players. Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, Starling Marte. All these guys are quality MLB players, right? All of them. The one that will probably be missed the most is Starling Marte, probably, in terms of leadership. In terms of production, we know it's going to be Pete Alonso. So I don't think this is a failed core thing. I think this is a culture shift. I think this is a culture shift. David Stearns is putting his foot down. Defense, execution, hitting. He's going to try to build this thing like he built the Milwaukee Brewers. But David Stearns, Mets fans aren't going to wait 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever amount of time you had in Milwaukee to build. Mets fans aren't going to wait on that. Mets fans pay premium money for premium tickets and food and merch and swag and all that stuff. We pay top dollar for every ounce of Met swag that we get. So you can't tell us to wait. Waiting is not an option. It's not. Have you ever been to Citi Field? Chat, have y'all ever been to Citi Field? Have y'all ever been to Citi Field? Just sporting events everywhere are more expensive than before. And most things in life are more expensive than they've ever been before. But do we have like the funds to spend like we want to at games and such? No. And especially not in New York City, Queens. So I don't think it's a failed core. I think it's you have to make it the Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor clubhouse, and a clubhouse divided just wasn't going to win, right? And so that's what I think it is. But I wish they would have been upfront and told us. I think they and I understand how these issues are delicate, right? But that's what things are what they are. My next point, and listen, thank you for everybody in the chat. This is our test show. So I'm just running the test show just to see what things I did right, what things I did wrong, things of that sort, man. Just to also just to put some content on the channel, grow the channel. So if this is your first time here, I'm Uncle Freezie. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and all that stuff. Great YouTube folks like to do, right? Do the right thing, right? How much faith do Mets fans have in David Stearns? Chat, I'm not gonna lie to you. I wasn't a fan of the hire. I'm on that side. And I know you guys want to judge me, right? I just felt like the small market GMs generally in big markets. And listen, I know their plan is to have David Stearns be to the Mets what Andrew Friedman is to the Dodgers. Listen, I know that. I'm a pretty smart guy. I understand. I understand. Right? I understand it. But that doesn't always work. And over the years, the Mets have tried a lot of different ways. They tried bringing in an agent, Brody Van Wagenen, bringing in the agent guy, all the relationships, guys I want to sign here because Brody Van Wagenen. Guys that want to sign here because he knows all these guys in relationships. That didn't work, right? The guy after him, I keep forgetting his name. The guy that wants to build it from scratch, drafting and adding and all that stuff. I keep forgetting his name, but he did a good job at times drafting and revitalizing the farm system. But you have to have a relationship with the guys, with the guys in the majors. And see, the guys in the majors that he inherited, the Noah Syndergaards, the Steven Matz, the Jacob deGroms, all those guys maybe wasn't necessarily a fan of them. And so you bring in the small market guy who was like, you know what? The numbers will tell you who to get. Analytics will tell you who you should chase, who you should keep long term, what lineups you should play, against what pitcher, against what team, and all that stuff. In my opinion, you have to have a personnel guy that can juggle all three of those things, right? You got to have the guy that's the relationship builder. You have to have the guy that builds up the farm system. And you have to have the guy that looks at analytics and let baseball people make baseball decisions. But you can't be one or the other. not in a position of decision making. One other thing I have before we get out of here, and man, this has been a very fast 30 minutes, y'all. This has been a very this has been a very fast 30 minutes. Yeah, Billy Epler. Hey, Mets, thank you, man. Thank you, man. Yeah, man. Mets mentioned his name. Billy Epler, that's his name. For some reason, I just can't remember this guy's name. I see his face, but just can't remember his name. And it's not that he's not important. It's just a knock on me for not remembering. Right. But one last question before we depart. Is the Mets farm system promising enough to forego a major trade for a star in his prime? Right? Do the Mets have a farm system chocked full of stars that you can wait on that will carry you for the next 6, 8, 10 years? Like, can you wait a year and a half for these guys in the minors to graduate to the majors and let them propel you for the next 6, 8, 10, 12 seasons? Or do you start packaging those guys now and take advantage of Francisco Lindor's prime? Here's the thing. If you say wait on those guys, remember, Francisco Lindor is going to be out of his prime in 2-3 years, 2-3 seasons, right? He'll still be a good MLB player, but you probably won't be getting 30 stolen base Francisco Lindor, right? By that time, maybe in 3 years, you may have to move him to second base. You may. It's food for thought, right? Do you want to save every ounce of talent in the farm system and then have them graduate together and then propel the Mets into a 8 to 12 year window of dominance with the guys that you have in your farm system? The thing is, do we know how good our farm system is? Because prospects are just like the word describes. Prospect. They're not guarantees. They're prospects. Right? But since you have so many of them, you have more chances for prospects to become guaranteed quality NBA play, Major League Baseball players. I'm going to leave that question open because I'm on the fence. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm on the fence with it. Right? I'm on the fence with it. I don't know if, for instance, if there is a world where we can get Fernando Tatis Jr. for prospects, I'm absolutely all in on Fernando Tatis Jr. right now. Right? Do I do that for a random guy that hasn't proven himself? Maybe 1 year? No. Do I trade all those prospects for a pitcher? No. Right? Fernando Tatis Jr., I can be talked into it. Julio Rodriguez in Seattle, I can be talked into it. Right? On that, I'm gonna say thank you everybody for coming through and hanging out with us. I appreciate that. This was the pilot show. We're gonna do more Mets content, do it more frequently. I appreciate the fact that y'all came through to hang out with us. Y'all have a good one.